Welcome everyone to Skills Connect. Skills Connect is a series where we have conversations with bold and responsible changemakers. I'm Siobhan Savage. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Reejig. And today I'm super excited to dive deep into the intersection of skills, AI, work design, and transformation with Kathleen Mattie. Kathleen, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Welcome, everyone.
So for those who may not know Kathleen, you should. And I'm going to give you a little intro of Kathleen, but would love to know your take on life and how you've got to where you are. So as Executive Director of Global Learning and Leadership Development at Estée Lauder, Kathleen leads the global talent development by bringing together AI, analytics, and innovative learning strategies with over a decade steering HR transformation at major companies and with a proven track record of building successful talent programs from the ground up. She's become a trusted advisor on the future of workplace development, and her vision extends beyond just traditional HR. She's working to reshape how companies approach talent and growth in our rapidly evolving workplace. And we're so grateful to have you here to have this conversation. Welcome to the show, Kathleen.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you for having me.
Oh, anytime. And what about this like gross New York weather right now? It's pretty moody. I was looking for like some desk lights to light up my room because it feels a bit gloomy.
Exactly. You could see maybe the snow behind me, which is kind of pretty.
Yeah, it is pretty. It's gorgeous. So tell us, tell me about you. Tell me about your background. I know I give you like a pretty hype girl version of your career, but like tell me why you love doing what you're doing, like what's important to you. Like tell us a little bit.
Yeah, I love people. So that's most important to me because people are the business. So let's start there. I spent almost 20 years at L'Oreal in multiple education and training roles. So I upskilling and reskilling, of course, always. And then I spent 9 years in product development, seeing a product from brainstorming to launch, which is also quite interesting from my background. So, and then I moved to Estée Lauder in 2019. I was really lucky enough to join a team that had just started a few months before, and they were also in the branding on the branding side of things and the retail side of things. So we came in as change makers, I think from the beginning, first time under the HR umbrella, coming in and saying, hey, we know we can modernize, we can transform. What can we do? We know we need to create a learning culture, but we need a lot more than that. And we've been trailblazing, to be quite honest, for the last 5 years. We won 7 awards for the LMS, including
Wow.
we won a Webby in 2022 and almost 30 plus content awards for the content that we've created. So we really have been trailblazing in this space. And that really, really excites me. It makes me really passionate because, like I said, people are the business. And I love developing people. That's a huge passion of mine. So.
And hopefully you got some free products over your career.
Oh, I've gotten a lot. Yes, for sure. Everything, skin, makeup, whatever
I need a new job.
Yeah, we'll get you some products. Don't worry about that.
I'll switch you some swag, some new Reejig swag for some lovely makeup. But it's really exciting, and I think the passion around the development, and I think in this new world where you've got AI coming in hot, right? Where it feels like as businesses and organizations, we're hurtling towards AI right now. And I believe personally, and I'm a pretty vocal person on this, that the chief learning officer has got one of the most critical roles to play within this new era. And I think, on one side, we're going to talk about this bold reinvention of workforces during this conversation. But on the other hand, there's this, responsibility that we have as leaders to make sure that no one is left behind. And I think when you and I met, the lovely Brian Hackett introduced us, which was great because we had this like instant connection around, we absolutely want to make sure that our workforces are reinvented, but we need to make sure that folks are not left behind. And I think, that for me has been, such an incredible part of your story and the way you're thinking about this new world of work. Tell me a little bit. So, when you think about the chief learning officer and the learning leaders of this new era of work, what do you think is going to be really important?
I think it's changing. It's changed quite a bit, right? I say, we need to create a learning culture. There's a book by Edward Hess, you probably know it, Learn or Die. That book was written in 2014. Learn or die. But think about how important learning is now. So for me, I look at it holistically. I look at the person holistically. They're learning on the job. They're learning from their peers. They're learning from formal training. I'd like to say we throw the 70-20-10 out the window, and there's no disrespect to the 70-20-10, but it doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We have to keep learning and learning and learning. So creating that continuous culture of learning constantly, it's like synonymous with work. So that's where, to me, that's where that connection
Yeah.
comes in for learning. We need to understand what every person needs in order for us to respond to, well, how do we train that person? It's becoming more and more personalized, especially with AI.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of what we've talked about at Reejig, and you know, my pre-story of building first into the skills and then realizing we needed tasks as well as skills. Why do you think organizations are biting on this right now? Like, what do you think is causing them to shift from just focusing on skills? Because I know that was a big eye opener for you to think more than just skills. Like, what do you think is happening there with the skills and task piece when it comes to learning and developing your people?
Yeah, it's you're totally right. Like getting into it and saying, well, all right, what are the skills? But hold on. It was like, hold on. It all goes kind of together. Well, what's the work, first of
Yeah.
all?
Yeah.
Work is like, if there was a hierarchy, it would be the work. What are the tasks? And the way I think about it is simply a job description, because we do have those, right? What are the tasks, subtasks that are on that job description? What skills then do you need for that to do, so a person to do those tasks, and then at what proficiency
Yeah.
level? So they have to go hand in hand. Skills are a byproduct of the work and the tasks that need to be done. That's
Hmm.
how I'm looking at it right
And
now.
how
Yeah.
with the AI, I mean, like every other conversation that you and I are having with folks, your teams, broader, you know, community peers, etc., we're all talking about AI and the impacts. Like with the AI, like how has the rise of AI influenced this shift? Like, what do you think has created that momentum towards tasks when it comes to everyone starting to think about implementing AI?
Yeah, what the way I think about AI is it creates dynamism. Like it
Mm,
doesn't exist without, it's dynamic, it's not static. So yes, we can have talent, we can have work, we can have tasks on an Excel spreadsheet, but they tend to stay static because we don't have time, right? That's like a little side job we all have to update those things. But AI can continuously update it, tell us about critical roles, tell us about emerging skills, just because it's AI. So
mm-hmm.
the partner, it's actually, for me, I feel it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary to stay competitive, to build this type of intelligence, if you will.
Yeah. And I think the more that we're working with folks and the more we're seeing, like, you know, you would have started out on your skills journey, but now we're looking at this whole component of task and it being that essential unit of work, really, to link to that. And one of the things that we noticed on our journey was we had built this skills cloud that predicted skills impacts, right? Because of AI. And it was terrible. It was really crap. And it was really crap because AI does not automate the skill, it automates the task itself. And it's another reason where when we're thinking about, you know, the impact to work in the future and to jobs and career pathing, it's another reason why task data is so important, because the amount of folks that are going out and having a guess around what the future careers will be when the AI companies themselves don't even know yet. We're kind of betting big on people's careers right now with no actual data. And I think that part for me is like, I think one that is really important, and that kind of annoys me a little bit because now there's data available to understand so that you don't waste a whole pile of people's time by sending them to career pathways that don't exist. Can you imagine rolling out learning programs and then, you know, a year later saying, oh, by the way, everyone, we got that wrong, really sorry, how that will land, you know? And I think, like, can you imagine that experience? And you
Not
don't want
very.
to, you don't want to be that person because these folks have already got enough stuff going on in their lives. There's a lot of things happening. So I think the whole skills and tasks thing are kind of like, what is it they say in America? Peanut butter and jelly.
That's right. They are peanut butter and jelly.
You know what I
They
mean? Like
are.
you got to have them both. Like, and I think that's where it's going to be really important to think about understanding the work. You know, when you're thinking about designing learning programs, you know, you're not just plucking jobs out of the sky. You're actually wanting to look at data to understand what are the critical roles of the future, right? That would be one of the first steps that you would take.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's where knowing that impact. And then, you know, when you're thinking about focusing on works and tasks, how do you think it provides actionable ways for companies sort of to identify what's needed to achieve their goals? Like when you're linking it back up to the business strategy, how do you think the learning strategy connects up to that?
I think it's all like a big cascade, right? So if we start at the top and say, what is the work that needs to be done? Like, even if you look at it, like I was thinking of the future, and thinking, well, we have work globally, overarching at the aggregate level, right? And then we have work in a business unit. Then possibly in that business unit, we have work in a department. How does that work get done? What are the tasks that need to be done for that work? And who has the skill set, to do it? And, I just think about this hometown event. I'm watching Virgin River too much lately. And if I was the mayor, right, and I had a bunch of people in a room and I said, we're having an event, this is what needs to be done. Some are going to say, oh, I could do the balloons. Some are going to say, or I'm going to say, hey, I know you could do that. So you take it on, right? And it's this ebb and flow of who can do it. But for learning leaders, we have to fill the gaps. So maybe there's tasks that people can't do or employees can't do. That's where, for me, that's where we close the gaps. But we can't do that without intelligence. We can't do that without looking at a beautiful dashboard and seeing where everything is and where everything lies. It's impossible.
Especially with the scale of the companies that you're working in, right? It's fine when it's like a little group of folks, but when you start to go big and global, it just becomes unmanageable, right? And I think a lot of my time, so hopefully you've seen our announcement today with the Learning Forum. We've launched our Work Design Collective. And it's where we're bringing top leaders together from all the top companies. And the purpose of that session and why Brian and Megan and I have brought this to market is, some of the conversations that we've been having right now, and it's a lot of folks are like, they don't actually know what happened. Like, what does this AI world even mean? What does this mean for workforce? How does that feel whenever it looks like our jobs? So there's this part where really senior folks are all on this journey together. And the intent for us all is to help the community rise. So we're all learning and sharing. And I think, one of the things that's going to be really important is how do you bring people on the journey of even thinking about, one, why AI powered is even a thing that the CEO wants, because that is reality. That like I spoke to someone the other day and I nearly died because they were like, oh yeah, but that's like 2 years away. And I'm like, what? Like, like your job will be at risk if you're not thinking like like, why are you not reading the earnings reports? How are you not understanding what's happening in the organization? You got to have a responsibility for yourself to make sure that you are not left behind, and you got to upskill pretty quickly. This is why we love having these conversations with leaders, because we feel a responsibility to share as much into the market as possible. And I think given, in the spirit of helping the community rise and sharing, like, when you're going through this journey, talk us through a little bit about how you bring people on the journey. So we've got to completely rethink this workforce. Day zero, it's all changing. How do you bring thousands of people, leaders, your individual employees? What does that look like?
Well, for me, you talk to them about the art of the possible, and you show them. And I would say visually show them what that can look like. And that's how you do it. And I talked to, just the past couple of weeks, like 3 CHROs, and they basically said, you sold me on the dashboard. The work was intriguing to them. They were enamored by what I was saying. And I was just saying, like, this needs to be done. There's no company left behind, as far as I'm concerned, at all. And I think one of the biggest drivers is really, really, and I don't think we have to convince the C-suite, but this is a business decision. This is not an HR decision. And I think that it has to shift into, this is our business. We need to remain competitive. We have to have this intelligence. Otherwise, we're going to fall behind.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I think as well, like, my observation, I mean, my background and expertise is in workforce strategy and workforce optimization. So not typically in learning, but my brain does think about, the whole picture of work, right? And how to bring a strategy together, from the CEO setting the direction of the company to what does our workforce actually have to do. And when we first started out as a company, I think the market was looking at this democratizing career and career pathways for the sake of retaining people. And we've had this hard shift in leadership in market. especially I've noticed it very much so in the US. It's gone from a more, we love our people and keep everyone and give them learning so that they're happy and they stay, to now learning is going to be used now as an enablement for business strategy. Very much so we're going on this AI journey. We need the right skills to be able to even deliver on that AI. We're going to buy all this AI. We need people who can operate the agents. So you got learning that needs to happen on this side. And then you've got the learning that happens because you've brought in AI and agents. One of the things we found in our research was if you bring in an agent, you're taking away tasks, but you're also adding new tasks in. And those new tasks, no one's ever done those before. So like, we got to get people the skills. Just on time learning, in my opinion, is going to be critically important for the AI evolution. So again, this is your responsibility to get that in play. And then the third part of learning for me is, okay, so we look at all of the rules and we look at the AI impact, and we know, and this is the part where you all know as chief learning officers with data, 2 to 3 years in advance, what will be the changes to your rules. And there is a responsibility to look at the impact and pivot. How do you look at the individuals and pivot them into the valuable roles that the business still needs? And that pivot learning is going to be really important because it's based on skill and task adjacency. And it'll also be based on how do we move you from being a recruiter into customer success? How do we move, and this is going to be really important. So there are kind of 3 pillars that we see when we're looking at learning. And the conversations that I've had with you were great because a lot of what we were talking about wasn't just the traditional critical pathway mapping. It was the let's analyze work, let's look at impacts, and then design learning strategies for that just in time for the pivot. And also to sort of amplify your employees to use AI, they need to be trained how to do it. So, exactly. And I know I get like pretty feisty about this because because it's like, for me, I'm like everyone just stop for a second. Just before we all deploy our budgets for the year, let's just make sure we're deploying them in the right way. And you and I were back of the napkin planning, your whole design framework for what you're going to do. And it was really exciting for me because I could see, as one of the strategists in the market, that you're right on top of what will be the AI powered workforce. And it's about, being bold. But I love the responsibility that you had as a leader to make sure that you were looking at that sort of full approach to enabling your people. And that for me is really important. And I think you're a really good example to the market of, folks that are in the learning space or in talent development to start thinking about it in that context. And I think, it's already begun. The AI isn't happening soon. We've started down that path and it's just going to accelerate at a pace. And this is our moment to get our shit together. Isn't it? Like you got 6 months tops and then we're hurdling. That's what I believe is going to happen. So, I think one of the other questions I had for you as well, like what advice do you have for leaders looking to create a workforce strategy that balances the skills, the works and the tasks, but also being agile? Because this market has been like up and down and up and down. Like how do you stay agile that you're not wedded to like a strategy and then if it shifts, like how do you deal with that?
I mean, you could certainly handle the work, the skills, and the tasks because they can call you. But as far as being adaptable, as leaders, we need to be adaptable, and we need to understand, and we need to be open-minded, right? We need to have the boldness, like you said. We need to have the patience, if you will, to get through this. But we have to use AI as well because AI is the driver. But we also have to be growth champions for our teams. Change champions for our teams. No time for change management. Everything's moving too fast. So the leader, we're putting more and more pressure on the leader. The leader to build up their ego strength. As far as I'm concerned, I borrowed that from the trusted advisor, by the way. But that's what we need because we need to be transparent and take people along the journey with us.
Yeah, I think one of the things, given your career, has actually been really focused with a sort of, you've got a dual workforce. You've got your desk workers who are in the offices, and then you've got, a multiple, much higher of deskless workers who are in your stores and across, and you think about impact from a technology perspective, it'll touch in lots of different ways, and your stores folks will have a very different impact than your office. I believe most of the impact will come to corporate first and the kind of headquarter rules because they're more knowledge worker and a lot of the agent can take that. That customer service will probably stay at the forefront of serving folks in stores, and you don't want robots testing your lipstick. I know I probably wouldn't do so well with that.
No, not quite yet. No.
I mean, it would be interesting to see, do they have an AI generated view of like, this would look better on your skin tone, but that probably already exists, right? There's probably
Yeah,
some like,
certainly does. That's already
damn, my
done.
new business opportunity, it's gone.
Check, it's done.
It's funny. I think one of the things, and the point I was getting to before I got distracted with lipstick again, was when you're thinking about the employee, and if we're thinking about, I talk a lot about the amplification of your employees, and making sure that the employee is actually enabled, and let's make AI not scary. Like, we should be making AI to all folks in our company something that we're open about, we talk about it, and that we are enabling them to free themselves up to do the more meaningful work. That we are saying that if you do this, you can get home in time with your family, because you're more highly productive. And this amplification thing is going to be, really important. How do you feel? How do you think and feel that from a employee perspective? Like, how do you think they're feeling right now? Like, what's your read on, like, and I know that's a pretty open question, but would
Yeah,
love to
no,
know what your take is.
it's totally fine. I think that they're some are over like, yeah, bring it to me now. I want it because I'm bold and I'm on top of it. And others are maybe a little bit scared. But as again, it really goes back to the ego strength, being
Mm-hmm.
communicative with them and
Mm-hmm.
talking to them about it, and not just surprising them and saying, hey, we're going to do this. No, talk about what's changing. And that's the way I've always approached it, like on a regular basis, not like once a month and you're springing something on somebody. We need to care for people. We really need listening skills, empathy, all the emotional intelligence skills right now to build the ego strength to take people along for the journey and say how positive
Mm-hmm.
it is. Super positive for employees. Super
Yeah.
positive. You could be whoever you want to be today,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think one of the shadow sides, I mean, by the way, completely in alignment with you. I think the shadow side of, you know, one of the conversations I had with the leader not so long ago was like, it's the employee's responsibility to like navigate it themselves. It's not HR or learnings. And I kind of took a pretty emotional response to it. I did react pretty hard. And I was like, hold on a second. Like, how are you don't even know. So someone who's working two jobs to feed their family and pay their mortgage right now, if we don't even know, how the hell are they supposed to know? So that, like, transparency and knowledge for learning leaders and development leaders to actually, one, arm themselves with that information is going to be really critical. But also, like, if we're expecting that the population is going to be able to self-navigate themselves when we don't know, that's a problem. And I think one of the things that, I personally believe, like, we created an impact fund where we're giving our technology for free to communities that, most need it. We've launched an incredible program that'll launch publicly in the next couple of weeks in Africa, which is just honestly game changing. But I think when you think about the individual, there's this really great story of opportunity and how do we amplify them, but then that shadow side of, okay, and there is going to be people that will be impacted. We've got this time right now, and you and I spoke a lot about, knowing the difference between some level of impact versus this is a full impacted role, and prioritization in the high impact. And I think, like, our energy will be very much so focused on, like, where is the highest level of impact, and let's look at the pivots. When you're going to have those conversations, back to what you just said, the transparency, the empathy, but then also, I know how to solve this problem with you. Like, we know how to solve it, like that's where I believe the best leaders in learning will come from. They have the knowledge to navigate and the empathy, like you just described, to give like a really transparent and honest opinion, but that they know what to do next. Like, how do you feel that, sure, companies have went through these changes, ups and downs for years, but I think this is a very different situation. The AI game is changing all of these conversations for learning leaders. Like, when you're thinking about that conversation with the employee, like, what would you expect the employee to see? Is it visible pathing? Is it learning available? What kind of things would you imagine, that you would give to the employees to bring them on that journey?
First of all, I want to say that I share your passion, that I I feel really strongly, it's an employee can do just so much on their own, but they need their leader. They need
Mhm.
their leader to pay attention to what's going on. And if you don't want to develop people, please don't be a leader. I think that choice should be made in companies, not to put people in these positions. But that conversation comes with, where do you want to go? You can be anything you want. I've seen someone go from a store, get a Coursera training, and then move into IT. Like, I think
Mhm.
we have to shift that way. Everything's changing we have to be open minded from the employee perspective, from the leadership perspective. How do I take this person on the journey they want to go on? Using, of course, listening skills, using empathy and saying, hey, this may change a little bit. These are the tasks you had before. You mentioned AI. We have some of those tasks can be taken away, but I know you want to do this. So we're going to now do these tasks. It's communication. It's communicating to them what the change is. So
Yeah.
they're not shocked and, oh my God, someone took my job. It should just be constant conversations. I hope I'm not repeating myself too much, but I feel
No,
pretty
no,
strongly about it.
I don't think so. And I think we need leaders right now who are passionate and are just not going to stand at the side and just let the trucks be rolled through. Like we gotta stand up and be very clear that, okay, let's do the AI thing. Absolutely. Let's do it. Like, I'm going to enable this, but you got to pair me up with the AI leaders or the team that are making the decisions on what jobs we're going to change, because then I'm going to be at the side, like scooping everybody up and making sure they're okay. And I think that's like, I know that sounds really silly, but that's kind of what I believe. And that's the positioning that you have in terms of, strategically building those business relationships internally. It's the getting that part where the connection point is there so that you've got an understanding of what the AI strategy looks like, so that you're then kind of like the quarterback, enabling the play, but making sure that folks are going to be okay.
Exactly.
And I think we're all just at the start of this journey. And I think like the more leaders like you that think like that and think about the business strategy and how that connects to learning, I think that's the new age chief learning officer. That they're kind of like half thinking about the AI component and understanding it enough. You don't need to be able to write code, but it's the conversations that you and I have at a technical level to talk about, here's the data, here's the kind of priority 1, 2, and 3 in terms of your learning strategy, and then you're designing that learning strategy to follow through. Like that's I think you're a really good example, to be honest, of,
Yeah.
of where leadership needs to go. There's a really good question from Joseph in the chat as well, and we'll try to answer as many of these questions as we can throughout it. So Joseph said, basically, how do you measure the ROI and use that data to convince the CEO to allocate more of the company's budget to L&D? I mean, I've literally just done that yesterday and got one signed off for a very big company. So I can take that, Kathleen, if you want.
Yeah, you can start with that.
So that
Yeah.
you don't, because I don't know if I want to put you in that position of asking you how you do things, in case we can talk about most things on these calls. So Joseph, one of the things that I would suggest for folks sort of listening now or listening later on Spotify is first go and make friends with the folks that are in charge. There's usually a task force that are, looking after the AI strategy, or there's, chief AI officer or someone. Find that part of the business and understand how far of the acceleration, like how much of a priority is this for the business. Most of the time we're seeing it's like a P1. It's top agenda item for CEOs. It typically is talked about in a lot of board reports as well. We look at that and we can see. And really one of the things that forget about the learning for a second. One of the things from an AI perspective that we find is like no company is going to be able to automate the company completely overnight. It's impossible. No one has the money to be able to afford to do that. And it would bring absolute chaos. So what you would either be doing from a workforce strategy perspective or an AI impacts or working alongside your AI team, depending on how you do it, is let's have a look at what is all of the work that is being done in the company. So look at every single role, look at all of the tasks. I mean, most companies are using Reejig right now because we break down the tasks for you and give you that data so you don't have to do it. And then what you then essentially want to do is roll across that the AI analysis. So what is the impact or the maturity level of AI in terms of this task? And we do that. Plus we then look at the dollar value of the task. So if you're spending 80% of your time on a task that is repetitive continuously and it costs a lot of money for the company, what we want to be able to do is for you to bring a report to your CEO to say, we've now analyzed all the work that's happening within our organization. We know the maturity level of the technology, and here is the priority ones that have the highest value, that'll have the quickest impact for our organization in terms of the tasks. And one of the critical things will be to then analyze the role impact to your business and understand, well, where will the impact be in our organization? And then by looking at the high impact, medium impact, low impact, what you want to be able to do is, what does that mean for people? Because every CEO right now in the country does not want to be taking people out of jobs. They want to be good leaders. They don't want to be on the wrong side of history, most of them anyway. And the opportunity for you is to present up bold and responsible. Let's be really bold and enable this, but let's be really responsible. And let's look at the impacts that this will have on our workforce and make sure that everyone has access to meaningful work. And we have a plan to navigate then these folks that will be impacted in P1, P2, P3 stages. And that is when the CEO will absolutely capture attention in that moment, because you're bringing together a big problem that they want to solve. You're looking at the impacts with real data, and then you're coming up with a strategy where, and we are going to need these types of workers in the future. If the CEO is deploying multiple millions of dollars worth of AI technology and no one adopts it, what do you think is going to happen? The whole thing flops. So back to my 3 pillars of learning, we look at the just-in-time learning to enable people to actually use the AI that we're deploying. So there's just-in-time skilling, that we're looking at the actual, like, I need more learning to be able to do this new task that's being created because of the AI. And then the third component is the pivot. So this is where L&D budget should be focused on those 3 key pillars to make sure that the skilling is there, and you'll get budget, because like it's directly linked to the number 1 priority of the organization. So hopefully, Joseph, that was helpful. I mean, DM me and I can get my team to send you more if that wasn't enough context. But that's how I would think about it, because learning budgets are getting slashed a lot at the moment. Unless it's compliance learning, we're seeing a lot of learning budgets getting pulled back. And I think a lot of the time when I talk to folks and kind of coach them a little bit, it's like, but it's connected to the wrong problem. Like connected right up to the top problem, which is what's got the attention of the CEO right now. And that will be, and I mean, we can throw together some of the business case stats that we've done for others, if that's helpful. Just ping me and let me know, and I can get the team onto that. From Kathleen, just getting back to the question. So what do you see when you think, I mean, everyone talks about the future of work, and it kind of annoys me. The future of work is already here. It's like, that's old language. But what do you see as the next big evolution in workforce strategy? Like, what do you see is going to be that?
Yeah, I thought about this a lot, and I think eventually, and you and I think we touched upon it a little bit, after we have all the workforce intelligence, talent intelligence, we have everything right in front of us. We could see the dashboard. We know where we need to develop people. I think employees will become way more autonomous from what they want as far as their career goes. I think companies will be super open-minded to almost like a fluidity, like in flow between companies being open, employees being open. I really think we're going to end up being some type of gig economy, but inside of a corporation, if that makes sense. So people are going to be moving around a lot, because we're adapting and adapting and adapting. And the way we work as humans is we're going to keep adapting to the change. Once we are settled almost in the change, right, where we're here, we are giving employees careers, we're building organizational capabilities, we can move people around much faster. Again, with that idea of what's the work that needs to be done, and then the task, and who's going to do those tasks. And then gaps are filled in by learning. I mean, learning is everything to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's well, like, for people listening who want to prepare themselves for what this future looks like what skills, mindsets, strategies do you think folks should adopt right now?
I mean, I think this really open-mindedness. You know what I think about when I think about this work, and I speak from experience on this, is like going through a maze when you're at a theme park. You know, you have to get through the maze, you have to get through the end. You start down a hallway, you run into something, boom. What happens? You go back the other way. 2 hallways now. You may go a little bit back to the start, right? It's like a game. At the end, you will get there because we
Hmm.
have to get there. I'm just as bold as you and just as passionate about we absolutely have to get there.
Yeah.
But the journey may not be, it's not a linear journey. It's like, oh,
No.
wait, we ran into this. Oh, wait, now how could we do it? Now how could we do it? So for me, it's that resilience and that adaptability and that agility and flexibility to say, I am going to do this because I know it's a business decision. It's going to change it's a game changer. This work is
Yeah.
a game changer for
I
sure.
think I think the other thing I think that folks need to realize is that to have a bit of empathy for themselves as well, because this is new. Everyone's doing this new. Like we're all just starting to touch this. So like failure is actually a good thing because it enables you to learn more. Like for us anyway, like we very much so started out pure skills, and it didn't solve the problem fully, right? Like it really didn't. And I think, as you start to innovate and as leaders start to make changes, we're going to make mistakes. And I think this is why the power of community is so important, because it's the sharing. Even if you're just at the start of your journey and you're putting the strategy together, like even if you haven't deployed, fully to full orgs, like there's still the part of the strategy and the thinking through that's going to be really, really important. And you're not going to get it right. It's exactly what you said. It's the little maze of like, okay, we went the wrong way. Okay, pivot, go this way and try that. And it's that continuous evolution of always moving forward. I think one of the things I also say to folks as well, like in your role, it is your responsibility, if you're the kind of the guider to everyone else in learning, that you're also investing time in yourself to learn. And you guys don't get a lot of time. You know what I mean? Like you don't actually have a lot of time yourself to skill yourself. And I think that's something that folks need to prioritize for 2025 is how do you take time out of your, busy schedule where you're caring for everyone else to take time to care for your own self, because you need to learn about AI. You need to understand it. You need to have, no one says you need to be able to code. No one says you need to know the difference between agent types, but there is a level of like high level understanding of AI. I really do believe that you will have, your employee workforce, your flex workforce, which is, your contingents, and then you're having your digital workforce. And I believe it will sit within, our realms of like the people space. Whatever we end up getting called in the future, I think the best leaders will step up and take all of that. And I think learning enough about that is going to be really critically important. So if anyone needs any recommendations on some learning and some courses or things that will give you like little shots of energy in your arm every week, like let me know, because my team have been pulling that together to really bring folks, and a lot of what you've been doing, Kathleen, has been very much so focusing on like quickly learning as fast as you can about AI, so that when you and I've been doing this for 5-6 years, so I'm pretty fluent, right, at this stage, but you can keep up and it's great. And that's because you've invested, can you give me some tips for folks listening on how you would structure learning for themselves in this new AI topic? Just, I know it's something just off record, but I think it would be like, what do you think folks could do for themselves to prioritize this?
First of all, I just want to say I'm a learner. It's number one on my Gallup Clifton Strengths. So it's easy for me to learn. But I would say I always encourage people to try it out, like see what happens. I mean, learning as far as AI is concerned, I mean, we're going to learn Socratically from chatting with ChatGPT. I mean, we're going to literally learn. That's another form of learning now that's been added to the mix. So I would say I'm an avid reader. I read a lot of Deloitte and a lot of the consulting companies. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I'm reading stuff that you publish. I'm always like that. That's how I get through it, and I do
Mm-hmm.
it on my own time. You're right. There's not a lot of time to learn, but I'm a learner by trade, so I could teach anybody. If anyone wants to call me, for certainly I could do that. But I want to make one point that I think is really important during this journey, is that I have to be honest. I felt alone, even though I wasn't alone, trying to figure this out with the skills. So what you talked about, how you started was, and I'm like, running into the maze and running into the hallways down that, starting from the beginning. And what really helped me was the community. And
Mm-hmm.
I can mention the learning forum because that really helped, because you're talking, going to like CLO exchange events and speaking there and talking to other people in the industry. We need each other right now. We have to stay close and tight as a community, because it makes
Mm-hmm.
me feel like, wait, I thought I was losing my mind. Well, I'm not losing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually, everyone's like perplexed with a question mark on their forehead,
Yeah.
knowing, wait, how are we going to do this? So I think that's really important as well.
Yeah. And I think as well, like there's this whole skills versus task narrative that's going on right now, which is super annoying because like one is not right or wrong. Like there's this, like you started your journey in skills and then you evolved your thinking
Right.
because of you changed your direction of thought because of the evolution of the market. And that's
Exactly.
the thing, like you didn't get the first phase wrong. Like no one does. Like skills is actually correct. Like people have skills. So you need to deeply understand the skill of your workforce. But if you are thinking about getting good skill data, it needs to be focused on the work that's being done in the company, not being sucked out of like job adverts, because that's terrible data. And I think we're moving into a world where data is the most important thing that an organization has. And you need really strong data. So, you know, a lot of this skill versus task narrative, I think, is nonsense. And it's just a little bit of like hyping. I think you need to understand the skills of your people. You need to understand the work that is being done in your company specific to you, and what are the skills that I require to complete that work. And that is the formula then for you tackling the most strategic problems in the organization when it's connected to operational efficiency, to transformation, to AI implementation, to your skilling. Like they're not one or the other. And I really don't like when people tag me in on social media and they're basically saying, Siobhan Savage is saying skills versus task. And I'm like, look at all my posts. It's not. Like all of our customers are skills and tasks. And in some instances, the tasks don't even feature in the back end or in the front end of the product because they're operating on their skills base, but the skill data is being fed from actual work that's being done and not work that's being sucked out of multiple different systems like Salesforce or Jira or any of that. It's actually based on the foundational model. We understand the work that's based on our ontologies. And I think that's where if folks take action from this call and hopefully, you know, from Kathleen's perspective, this has been, you know, an incredible discussion about, you know, where we were, where we're going, and what we all need to do as leaders. And I think, you know, Kathleen, that piece around, I'd love for you to share after this, because I know we don't have a lot of time for you. I would love for you to share with folks on this call, maybe a post on social where, you know, you're talking about this new role of the CLO and what that looks like in this new world, because I think that would be really valuable. And some of the tips and tricks for like upskilling yourself to learn about AI. I would love that because I can absolutely share this with this community here. And finally, like for folks on the call, we're hosting alongside the Learning Forum. It's a pretty exclusive group of, you know, the top Fortune 500 companies, and it's a, you know, a year-long program designed to educate folks on how to think about work design in the context of this new world of work. So my team have put that in the channel. If anyone wants to check it out and join, like I would really encourage folks to get involved, because it'll be a really, we're going to basically teach people how to design this new strategy. There's no vendor stuff. It'll be very focused on, you know, using the expertise that we have to bring community together, but also teach you the fundamentals of building and designing this new world. So it's, the link is in the chat. For those that are listening, you can go to the learningforum.org hashtag or / the work design collaborative and sign up there to be part of that exclusive group. Kathleen, this was amazing. This was so good. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your openness and your empathy to have this conversation with us. One quick question I have just before we go. If you could redesign how organizations think and start from scratch, what is the one thing that you would do first before you would go down that road?
What would I do first before I designed it? I'd probably eliminate the role. Design the work.
That's actually a good point, and that wasn't prompted.
Nope. No,
yes,
it wasn't.
It would be focused on the work. I agree. I mean, the one thing we've also discovered as well, a little bit off script, but like the role is super important. So if you think about tops down, we focus on role in HR. The business don't talk about the role. The business are talking about processes, right? They're talking about work and processes. So I think there has to be some synergy between the HR folks talking in a similar language to the business for any of these transformations to work. And I think that's going to be a really critical step moving forward. A massive thank you, Kathleen. Thank you to everyone who has dialed in. We'll follow up on any of the questions that we didn't get to. Kathleen, this has been incredible. Thank you and good luck. And goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.